The world's first horror movie begins with a bat flying into a castle and then magically turning into a caped demon figure known as Mephistopheles. It ends with Mephistopheles being chased out by someone holding a crucifix. Okay, so The Shining or The Exorcist, this movie is certainly not. But the movie known as The Haunted Castle, directed by legendary film visionary Georges Méliès, is generally considered the first horror movie ever created. Featuring a boiling cauldron, a tiny minion, phantoms, a skeleton, apparent suicide from one of the terrified creatures, and even a witch, it certainly hits a few of the tropes that we are accustomed to seeing in today's scary movies. The film's, for the time, state-of-the-art special effects also adds thrills. And all of these screams are delivered in a runtime of just under 3 minutes. It's generally accepted that the first movie ever was Edward Muybridge's groundbreaking 1878 Horse in Motion, which we've covered in fascinating depth before on this channel. You'll find a link to that video below. But the method used to capture the images used in that one was essentially just high-speed photography using multiple cameras. The result was more or less what we'd think of as a very short animated GIF rather than an actual movie. That all changed, however, when Thomas Edison visited Muybridge's studio sometime in the mid-1880s. Taking a keen interest in his groundbreaking work, but unimpressed by his execution, Edison began to develop a device that would do for the eye what the phonograph does for the ear. Around 1889, the kinetograph debuted out of Edison's West Orange lab. Despite Edison's claims that he was the one who invented what many hail as the first camera to photograph motion pictures, historians generally attribute Edison's assistant, William Kennedy Laurie Dixon, as the creator of this history-making invention. In 1890, Dixon shot a test movie he entitled Monkey Shines No. 1, featuring the movements of another lab assistant. The result was more like something a ghost hunter would use as proof that evil spirits are lurking, rather than the films that would soon start to come out. Nevertheless, it's generally given credit for being the first official video camera motion picture in all of history. It also inspired Edison to build what was perhaps the first movie studio near his West Orange lab. Calling it Black Maria because they thought it resembled a police wagon, this is where they shot hundreds of motion pictures featuring vaudeville, magic shows, boxing matches, and Wild West stunts. Included among the latter is a video of Annie Oakley showing off her prodigious skills with a rifle. From here, motion picture innovation really took off. In April of 1894, the Kinetoscope Parlor opened in New York City, which was essentially the first public movie theater. Then there was the first movie projected for a wide audience, the first on-screen kiss, and the first theater permanently created entirely for a film. In 1895, the Lumiere Brothers, who made several groundbreaking advancements of their own in film and video camera design, became the first real auteurs making and exhibiting films with short narratives, including the famous 50-second short, and I apologize for my French pronunciation here, but Arrivée d'un train un gars à la Ciotat. They also debuted the first comedy film featuring a gardener and his water hose. With their revolutionary technology, the Lumiere Brothers began attracting audiences from far and wide, including shoemaker-turned-illusionist Georges Méliès, who attended one of their screenings in late 1895. Méliès was born in Paris in 1861 to a shoemaker who fully expected his sons to follow in his footsteps when he retired. Despite showing an interest in stage performance at an early age, his father refused to support him in this career, and after attending school, Méliès dutifully settled into a career as a shoemaker. Soon, though, his father would retire, and he handed off the business to his 3 sons, including Georges. Georges, still wanting nothing to do with this, sold his share of this business to his brothers and used this money, along with a sizable dowry from his wife, to purchase an old run-down downtown theater called Robert Houdin Theater. Méliès turned the theater into a popular magic show venue, and he was always looking for an edge, and upon seeing the Lumiere Brothers' demonstration of their magical device that showed motion pictures, he attempted to buy it off them. The Lumiere Brothers refused, so Méliès built his own video camera with the help of an engineer. Filming his illusions and playing them back to the audience proved to be a big hit. He soon took his camera outside, filming street scenes and creating narratives. It was supposedly in the autumn of 1896 when Méliès discovered a significant trick that the camera could play when it jammed up when filming. In his own words, During this minute, the passerby, buses, carriages had moved, of course. When I projected the film, joined to the place where the break had occurred, I suddenly saw a Madeleine Bastille bus changed into a hearse and men changed into women. The substitution trick, called stop motion, had been discovered. This simple special effect became the basis for the haunted castle. While it's thought of today as the first horror movie, Méliès made the film to be surprising and attention-grabbing rather than anything else. The premise is pretty nonsensical, obviously intended to showcase stunning, for the late 19th century, special effects rather than any particularly compelling story. As you can see, if you go watch it, throughout the nearly 3 minutes, images keep popping up, disappearing, and turning into other things. A bat turns into a demon, a girl turns into a witch, a bench suddenly has a skeleton on it, and the thin air turns into a trident-wielding goblin. In the end, a crucifix is used to chase the demon character out, and because of this ending and the general garb of the evil protagonist, not to mention his ability to turn into a bat, it's sometimes described as the first vampire movie. Notably, Bram Stoker's Dracula would not be released until the next year. Also of note, one of the women in the film is Jehanda Alsi, who would later become Méliès' mistress, and indeed later his second wife. The Haunted Castle is certainly not his finest film. It is simply a very early effort. His most lauded work is generally considered to be A Trip to the Moon, a masterpiece that is the direct ancestor of every single science fiction movie ever made. Its fantastical narrative about going to the moon, including that iconic image of the moon with a rocket stuck in its eye, has inspired filmmakers ever since. In all, Méliès astonishingly made around 500 films in just 14 years, on average one about every 10 days. Unfortunately, only around 200 of these have survived to the present day. While many are more highly regarded than the 1896 Castle movie, none of the others can claim to be the first horror movie ever. As for Méliès himself, a series of missteps and inability to adapt to new film-scale models and World War I would ultimately see the once extremely prosperous filmmaker impoverished and working in a little toy and candy booth in Montparnasse train station in Paris. If this is all sounding a little bit familiar to you, well, you might have seen the movie Hugo. This is based on the book The Invention of Hugo Cabret, which in turn is loosely based on the life of Georges Méliès. So if you really liked that video, I'd recommend another one that we've got. It's called The First Movie and the Scientific Question that it sought to answer. If you watched this video, you can probably guess what it is all about. I'll give you a clue, something to do with horses. You can find a link to that on the screen now or indeed below this video. Also, do subscribe to our channel. We put out brand new videos just like this every day of the week, so lots of stuff from us to watch and check out, so subscribe to that. Also, if you want something else to watch, I got another channel. It's called Biographics, 20-minute looks into the lives of people from history, so check that out, linked to below as well. And as always, thank you for watching.